I guess no presenter view. Yeah. I think that should work. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you guys. Oh, yes. Thank you. Are you guys able to hear me? Yeah. Okay, I'll talk quieter. I am Hogan. I'm an engineer from Pico, joined by Jonas.
And I'm Jonas Holzman. I'm a developer with Blender, and that's it.
Yeah. And here we're going to talk today about the future of extended reality for Blender development. Now, the big question that we're trying to answer here at today's talk is, what does the future of XR in Blender look like? But first, we want to address the question, what has XR in Blender look like? So let's get into the history of things. First off, there's simply just being able to take your Blender scene, render it to a stereoscopic panorama, and preview it in Blender. This is all static, pre-rendered, pre-generated, but it was fundamental in trying to establish the first steps for XR in Blender. This is Dalai over here, head of product. He experimented with on the Oculus DK2, doing this entire process back in 2015. And this was extremely important, just being able to view stuff in XR from Blender. But you sort of realize you lack the functionality of being able to move around your scene. It's only statically rendered. And so you have sort of these first forays around 2016 into the idea of taking your 3D development, your 3D content creation tool, and putting it in an XR medium. And here is Marui. It was a plugin for Autodesk Maya that actually had a lot of really cool, innovative ideas. And this was foundational in what eventually became official OpenXR support in Blender, which, if you guys aren't familiar with OpenXR, it's a shared framework across a bunch of different XR devices of how an XR app should run on a runtime and operating system. This means that you could build the same app for your HTC Vive, your Oculus, your Pico device, and it should run all pretty much the same. And once OpenXR as a SDK was released in 2018, 2019, Blender was actually one of the earliest production developers running on OpenXR runtime. And they came out with this feature where you were able to essentially just stream your Blender scene into your VR headset and experience it fully immersively. It was really, really cool. But ever since then, there's sort of been less and less official support in Blender for OpenXR, and it's been up to the community through custom add-ons and plugins to continue this effort of taking Blender and expanding it into the XR medium. Here you have Freebird XR, which was a paid closed source plugin that started being developed and released in 2022, but it's been sort of progressively adding functionality over the course of 2 years. I think 2024, they released a version 2.0, and it has really cool functions, like being able to do animation rigging and sculpting and all of that really cool stuff within XR itself. You guys are probably all familiar with Grease Pencil VR if you came to the talk, but Daniel Lara, the creator of Grease Pencil, or one of the creators of Grease Pencil, he started an initiative back in 2023 to take Grease Pencil and make it interactable within XR itself. And you have really cool results from that. You have, I think Catwalk is going to give a talk later today about their experience working with Grease Pencil VR for a fully VR built animation in Blender. Which brings us to today, or 2025, where Pico proudly has announced a partnership with Blender, where we are working on continuing that official support and trying to figure out how to take Blender further into the XR medium beyond simply just VR scene inspection. Just as a simple introduction to who we are at Pico, we are a VR device company, or VR, AR, MR, all extended reality device company. We've been releasing products since 2015, I believe. So that's 10 years of products. And if you haven't heard of us, go check us out. I personally think that like form factor wise, we have the best devices and it just feels insanely good for me personally. But everyone has their own preferences. And we sort of acknowledge how XR can take Blender to the next level in 3 specific workflows. Firstly, you have pre-visualization, which is the ability to take your Blender scene that you're currently working on and be able to view it immersively, be able to experience it before it's even finished. And this is an extremely important use case for Blender in XR as it is. A lot of the times you want to be able to like see your scene to scale, make sure that it actually feels real and it feels visceral. And without previs, you just don't have that. And an extension of previs would be specifically for the case of architecture and interior designing. And so you have what is called ArcViz, which is previs for rooms, environments that haven't been built in real life, but are in the process of being planned out. And then lastly, this is what Grease Pencil VR, Freebird, and Marie sort of addressed, which is the idea of doing 3D modeling and animation from within your XR headset itself. Now, specifically what Pico brings to the table is we are an XR-focused company, and we come from an extensive background in that field. And so that means that we could bring best practices for interaction, specifically for XR. We have really important knowledge in how to properly render things, which is extremely useful for trying to render UI in 2D elements inside of your XR environment. And lastly, there's a lot of sort of performance caveats that come with XR, and you have to design around that. And we are able to sort of like bring that expertise to the table. Now, let's try talking about what we've worked on so far this year in this partnership.
So, what we've been working on, location scouting. So this is a VR prototype, UX VR prototype that we've been working on. So location scouting in the real world, to give a brief introduction, is the act for a director to go and film location before the actual shooting, and use what's called a viewfinder, which you can see in the picture, which using the actual camera lens that will be used during the shoot, basically get angles, positions, and project themselves, guess where they will be placing the camera. And in VR, with an actual example, used to be, fantastic video, please. This is done using a virtual viewfinder. So this is the UX prototype we've been working on. The idea is that you got this sort of virtual camera, right? And the camera lets you do 2 things. You can capture what we call shots or landmarks, but it's really not only just images, it's also position, lens, depth of field. You're actually capturing an actual camera. You're setting the camera settings from your hand, position and angles, projecting yourself in the scene, and you can use this tool to place the camera intuitively, basically. This is then all available from the Blender 3D view and viewport. The camera position are available, which lets you turn all of these kind of pictures into actual cameras. And a demo of this demo will be available at the Pico booth in the Monkey Cafe restaurant at the bottom floor of the conference. So we also got macOS XR bindings. So if you know anything about macOS and VR, you know that it actually doesn't exist yet. There is, of course, Apple Vision Pro, which you might be thinking of, but this is actually a completely separate product and ecosystem outside of what we can call PCVR, which is OpenXR and all of those other VR headsets and products. And so previously, VR scene inspection, Blender VR didn't work on Mac, of course. But recently, OpenXR has taken steps and made updates to basically allow us to lay the groundwork to eventually have VR working on macOS. Right now, it only works in simulator software. So you won't be able to actually plug in a VR headset, but you can use VR scene inspection and do like development and try out things and kind of test VR on your Mac, which is quite cool. And you can get more information about this, how it works, and then how to test it from the pull request that will be linked at the end of the talk.
And then lastly, we've been working on sort of revamping the camera movement and locomotion system that was currently in VR scene inspection. And this so far has involved things like adding a vignette that appears on the edges of your screen when you're moving your camera. Or improving the raycast to be curved and have like a clear indicator as to where you're going alongside other quality of life improvements to that functionality. Adding snap turning as opposed to sort of being able to continuously move your camera. And why all of these are important is specifically because if you've ever tried a VR headset before, you've probably felt some sort of nausea, whether it's after 5 minutes or like 45 minutes of playing, but this is sort of a huge hurdle for a lot of people to enter the XR medium. And it's extremely important to actually design your experience to alleviate all of these nauseating effects. And this is what we came to the table with and sort of plotted out in terms of making sure that movement feels as refined as possible. Now, let's talk about what the future entails for Blender in XR. We could sort of analyze how Blender can be improved the best in the XR medium and divide it into 3 different avenues and approaches that we could take to further development. First off, being improving on stereo rendering. This is just the ability to statically view your content within XR. And this has already been sort of like a solved case. It's been worked on for like 10 years, starting with the stereoscopic panorama. But this entails things like making the entire experience refined. And this is what Advanced Locomotion project was born out of. Next is the idea of wearing your XR headset and being able to continuously modify your Blender scene using standard inputs, that being keyboard, mouse, drawing tablet, whatever. We realized that with current technology that you don't get a lot of the fine motor movements and precision that you do with established technologies like tablets and a mouse. And to be able to work with your old artist workstation or developer workstation, to continue having the same workflow and to simply have XR just be an addition to that entire process is extremely important. We call this assisted XR. And then lastly, this is probably what you think of when you think of taking Blender and putting it into XR, which is just simply immersive creation. You put on your headset, you're able to do everything, whether that's rigging, modeling, sculpting, blocking out your scene. You're able to do it all within your headset itself while viewing it. Now, whether or not the technology is currently there is up to debate, and we're still working on ways to slowly address the idea of having this full immersive creation ecosystem. And one of these ideas that we had was location scouting. Where can XR as a medium improve on workflows despite having limited technology in terms of precise hand tracking and precise controllers? Is in things like being able to like view your scene immersively and viscerally and plot out where everything is going to go. to be able to see your scene from like a certain angle and be like, hey, this is how I want my animation to play out. This is how I want this sequence to play out. And this is where location scouting comes into play. Now, what's next? As mentioned before, the idea of assisted XR is to continue using your XR headset alongside your existing workflow and workstation that you have. And part of that means actually having it be visible. Now, if you are currently using VR scene inspection, you probably have realized that you have access to your keyboard, your mouse, everything, and you are able to like dynamically edit your scene on the fly, and it's reflected within your headset. But there is that huge caveat of you not being able to see your hands and your tablet and all of that, and this is a major hurdle. How we address that is with mixed reality. So we have these two different ideas. The idea of a reality bubble, so being able to have specific portions of your environment be shown alongside your fully immersive VR scene. And then you could see how we could increase that immersion on the other hand by being able to view select portions of your scene with the hologram idea. View select portions of your scene to scale and try and like design and iterate off of it dynamically on the fly within your VR headset itself. Both of these ideas try and tackle the issue of how to make the best and most performant iterative process between your headset and real 3D content creation.
So, what we also want to introduce in the near future is an XR UI toolkit. So, currently, Blender does not support creating UI in XR. What you saw in the prototype a few slides before for location scouting was complete hack, to put it simply. And while it exists, we do need to create a better framework to be able to create better UI. And this can be done in steps, as to note, to be done in parallel of other XR developments, with the first step being simple panels floating in space that cannot be interacted with, panels that you can attach to your controllers, as you saw before. And then we can go further than this with being able to grab panels with your controllers and interact with them using ray selection with the controller. So you take your controller and you point to click buttons on the UI. And one thing that we would also really like to do in the future is to expose this future XR UI framework to the Python API, so that the community is able to more easily create VR add-ons and globally enrich, in a way, the Blender VR ecosystem. And what's next? Housekeeping, yes, of course. So currently, VR scene inspection in Blender is still experimental, technically. It's been around for a long time, but it's also not have seen that much development in the last few years. So the goal of this simple task is to basically make it better. So more performant, less subject to crash, solve bugs, better stability, all of this. Also moving it out of experimental, which includes not making it an add-on. Still make it an optional feature in Blender, of course, but move it out of this idea that you have to enable an add-on and you have to tweak some stuff. Basically, make it more accessible and more embedded into Blender. Other relevant talks at Beacon this year. You want to do this part? Sure.
Oh yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah. Basically, we wanted to shout out Catwalk, which is a talk being given later today.
They're here.
Oh, they are here. Yeah, I'm so excited for it. And if you guys want to go check out like the actual process being talked about, like go check it out. I will be there. And then also we want to shout out previous talks given by Daniel Lara about Grease Pencil VR. that were given in the last 2 years. And then also an article written by Dalai about stereoscopic panorama. This was what I referenced at the very beginning in terms of the first steps of taking Blender into the XR medium. And then finally, just some references. If you want to go check out our forum post about the future roadmap for XR, go check it out. Go leave comments, suggestions, thoughts. We'd love to hear it all. And then also pull requests for all of the stuff that we've done so far. All right, any questions? Or applause first, yes. Okay, yes, I will add the dev talks for that after the fact.
You can test the builds already, but also give feedback to the specific locomotion features as any of the ongoing development.
I have two questions. There is like a Blender coming to Android, and the Pico pretty much runs on Android, right? So is there plans to have like a Blender inside Pico? And another one, I saw like Blender 5 is coming with physics simulation through geometry nodes. Wouldn't the UI just be geometry that you interact with physical nodes and do the whole thing through geometry itself and not have a whole new API for Blender?
Both are fantastic questions.
Repeat the question just for the...
Okay, yes. So there was two questions in that. The first one being that if Blender is going to be supported officially for Android, then is there any plans for having a standalone Blender running on Pico? This is actually currently being talked about, and one of the possible approaches that we will take to expanding Blender into mixed reality. This is the assisted XR plus initiative that we were talking about. So yeah, we'll need to scope it out and everything, but yes. And then the other one being, physics and all of that. We don't currently have any sort of like full plans on supporting that, but since everything will be sort of dynamically, like everything in VR scene inspection is dynamic, whatever is being rendered in Blender will be rendered in your VR headset. So yes, theoretically, physics should already be supported.
Yeah, I think it's in the spirit of the hacker cafe, right? The gizmos we think about of them in Blender, they're also thinking about, they're like a great interaction for VR as well. So that's why one of the reasons we're pushing more for gizmo kind of interaction, because they're very tablet friendly, very XR friendly. So then it's kind of converging in that direction. I don't want to repeat that. I'll be brief.
Blender, I mean, as Tom mentioned in the keynote, is the Blender 5 series, not 5.0, that is simulation for physics. 5.0, though, is getting a lot of new assets bundled with Blender, including a new array modifier and scattering modifier that use gizmos a lot for the interaction. So you can just, add the modifier, have it active, and now you can, instead of deciding how many copies, you can just take the gizmo and move it around. And all the development in gizmos, it is alignment for Blender on tablet, Blender on VR, even Blender on viewport with a less distracting working environment. So in a way, the UI overall in Blender and UX is converging to this more direct interaction with the object for sure.
All right, any other questions?
I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit about the challenges in moving from like a single cursor, single input to multiple. So being able to now, grab objects, multiple hands, and that kind of interaction.
Do you have anything to talk about, Jonas?
Oh yeah, of course. So the question was about the challenges of working with multiple cursors and interaction devices. For the most part, VR kind of handles it nicely by itself in the sense that if we create interaction for one controller, then they can be both used at the same time without too much restriction. The existing Blender systems lets us easily do this, the same way that multiple objects can already be interacted with at the same time. Everything should just magically work. And the same way as Hogan said that VR is just a direct view of the Blender viewport. You get everything in real time, so there's no like VR specific limitations. If it works in like the Blender window, it will work in VR. Just the interaction is of course to be created, but overall, there's not that much limitation in that sense.
Any ideas or plans for integrating hand tracking as a controller mode?
Nothing sort of set in stone. Oh, sorry. The question was any plans on integrating hand tracking as a mode of interaction with Blender? So there's nothing really set in stone, but I do think like the ability to be able to manipulate your scene with your hands itself is very powerful. Now there are caveats to it, like it just not having the same precision as controllers, and not every device out there, not every OpenXR device does support that functionality. But I think that this is actually something that there are plugins out there experimenting with the idea. So it's really cool, but nothing set in stone.
Is there plans to get the scene understanding or geometry mapping of the 3D scene into like Blender or some sort of data stream? I don't know if that's supported by OpenXR or on PCPR, but like for example on the manifest you have the ability to get like a 3D mesh or data out. Is that something that might be interesting or planned?
The question was, is there any plans for scene understanding for this initiative? And I think sort of we could look at mixed reality for Blender in several steps, and eventually like we want to get to a point where you do have that full scene understanding and all of that. But first off, we need to put Blender in mixed reality. So I think that is really cool. Yeah. Any more questions?
Do you plan to do anything for people who might be outside the VR? Say if someone is looking at the screen, VR can be upsetting, but looking at the screen can be far worse.
So you're saying beyond current like Steam VR functionality where you do have the VR screen?
Yes, but
like,
if you take only the Steam VR functionality, you get the full scale of the head movements,
mm-hmm.
and it's very upsetting if the people is looking everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you just can't look at the screen.
Oh yes, I need to repeat. The question was basically, is there a way to see how the person using VR is interacting in the world? Kind of, I guess.
Yes, maybe filtering the movements or.
Yeah. So that's already possible in Blender. If you use the VR inspection add-on, at the bottom of the panel, you will see like basically display options, and you can show the current hand positions, position of the headset as a little virtual camera. And so if you have someone using VR next to you, you will see his little camera moving around in space. So we do already have interactive feedback in that sense. So yeah. We do plan on improving it because currently, for example, we also have VR view mirroring, but it doesn't perfectly work. So that's, again, part of the stabilization stuff. But eventually, yes, we do want to be able to fully visualize what's happening directly from Blender. Yep.
I have one more, the last one, sorry. Since headsets, they are more than just for view, they also have microphones included. Is there thought about adding voice control so you could actually speak to commands to Blender through the XR platform?
I think, oh yeah, the question was, will there be support for getting microphone through your VR headset so that you could, for instance, speak to commands to Blender? No, that's not currently on the roadmap, but...
We talked about that even with Pico earlier that year as exploring what is the future of interaction in an immersive environment. A voice assistant would be, of course, a dream, would be perfect. So maybe something that should be possible for people to tinker on top of Blender, not something that we're committing to or investing resources on. And who knows, right? Ethical AI maybe is something that can work well with MCPs and whatever run in the background, and then you could just model me a cube again. I don't know. Delete the cube. Not delete the cube. I don't know.
But not open.
No, that is actually something that is possible with current technology out there. Is you could have your VR headset on, and be able to hook up Blender to external LLM, and then speak into the LLM, and then it generates it all. Now, that's given like a minute or two of waiting around, but it's still really cool technology. Yeah.
They're going to be here the whole week as well.
So one thing I'm curious about is I developed a VR application for, and there's a lot of moving parts in the sense that the whole platform underneath you constantly changes. So maintenance is also something I would be worried about for Blender. Like right now, Pico is partnered, but with a limited team, I can imagine like so much changing that it's hard to maintain this quite separate interaction model and part of the code base.
So the question was, is there a maintenance burden, I guess, from like the fact that the VR ecosystem is constantly changing? So that's one thing that OpenXR is meant to fix in a way, because OpenXR is an open standard and also a fixed standard. So you have a version release, but you can stick to one specific version. And OpenXR doesn't change. So since we implement OpenXR on our side and the VR headset implement OpenXR on their side, if we both respect OpenXR, then everything is stable. So in that sense, the OpenXR implementation of Blender hasn't changed much in 2019. And as you can see, it still works. So the maintenance burden of following new technology is something that, of course, needs to be considered because VR headsets are evolving rapidly, and if we want to stay on top of things, we will need to spend time implementing new VR features as they come in. But VR itself, as long as OpenXR sticks around, it should be pretty stable, yeah. So that's fine.
Okay. If you want to talk to us more, Pico, we have a booth downstairs, I think in the Monkey Bar, is it?
Monkey Cafe.
Monkey Cafe. That's like the restaurant on the first floor. Yeah, so come check us out. We're doing some demos if you want to check out the location scouting and new locomotion systems. And chat with us more about the future of XR and Blender. Yeah.
Come see us.
Okay.